We're gonna have to edit out the first 10 minutes. So slow. Well, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to talk about the Stack Overflow macro pad from drop.com, the key version 2. Mostly we're going to talk about configuration. In fact, if you're watching this video, you probably got your macro pad and thought, man, I really need to configure this. What's the easiest way? So we're going to go over a couple methods. We're going to start off with what I think is the most user-friendly version through VIAL and move on from there. So the place to start, if you've already received your macro pad, you're going to look at the page, the product page on drop.com, scroll down for about, I don't know, one page, and you're going to see Firewatch ask a question. Hey, can anyone help me change the LED colors? And JetSerge, a real champ, JetSerge is the man, says, hey, use this firmware and then use VIAL to configure it. And that's what we're going to do. His work has really made this the best, and I appreciate it very much. You're going to need three pieces of software, really. This firmware, which you're just going to download. You're going to need the QMK Toolbox, which you can just Google QMK Toolbox, or there's a link on the configuration page from drop.com. Scroll down to the bottom, download your latest releases here. When you click on that, it'll take you to the version page. I just download the installer, install it, and QMK Toolbox is the software you need to burn the firmware, the hex file, into your macro pad. So the default firmware is pretty much, this is Control, this is C, and this is V. So you get copy and paste, and that's about it. And then it can do so much more. So once you've downloaded your firmware, you're just going to drop it in probably the download folder, and you've installed the QMK Toolbox. You're going to, let's navigate to our downloads. Let's go through the steps. You're going to open up the zip file for drop the key v2 VIAL. Copy this out of here. Then in your QMK Toolbox, you're going to open, go to your downloads, select your firmware, the VIAL hex, and then you're going to push the reset pin here. You'll get a message in your toolbox that says that your ATMEL DFU device is connected. If you get a message here that says no driver, you want to go to Tools and Install Drivers. That means either you installed QMK Toolbox before they released the driver for this particular version of chip, or something else. Just install the driver. Then when you hit the reset button, you'll get your ATMEL device connected. Select your firmware, hit flash. Pretty quick process, and now it's ready for VIAL. So the last piece of software you need is VIAL. You're either going to go to get.vial.today/download, or just Google it, download your Windows installer. And there you go. Drop the key version 2. You've now got keys 1, 2, and 3 configured. You've got a matrix tester. Test your keys out. This is pretty much the best place to start. So what I recommend, and you can stop here. If this is as far as you want to get, great. So here's the way I like to do it. I like to use a tap dance function for key 1. Tap dance gives you a lot of things you can do. So let's say I want to go tab for single tap, and Shift Tab for double tap. On hold, I want to go to momentary layer 1 and double tap hold layer 2. So now when I hit tab, I go forward 1 cell. When I hit double tap, I go back 1 cell in like a Excel or something. And I have access to 2 layers. So let's go to layer 1. I'm going to leave this first key as the KC transparent. That means while you're pressing it, it just reverts to the layer above it. And we're just gonna do some, let's go lighting. Let's go mode, positive, negative, and then layer 2, let's go hue, forward and back. The downside is that you're only going to get a couple of keys at a time, right? So after we set the mode and the hue, maybe we can adjust the brightness if we want to. And this one, I'm going to do Control C, and I'm going to do Windows V. Windows Paste is more functional access to the clipboard for my basic use. So now when I hit Win V, I've got a clipboard access instead of just a regular paste. So let's go to an Excel sheet. Here's some stuff. Let's go, let's see, test 2, and test 3. Right? So forward, backwards, I'm gonna copy, paste, sure. Test 3, and let's say I want to copy test 2. There you go. Let's say I want to add text. Copy, paste, here we go. There we go. So now I've got a more functional copy and paste, but we also changed layer 1 and layer 2. So let's see what that looks like. So single tap, like we saw, is tab. Double tap is shift tab. Holding it down, I have access to the modes. Let's go mode. So now I can cycle through my RGB modes with a single hold of the key. Kind of like static lights. That's pretty boring, but when I double tap now, I have access to the hue. So I can select whatever color I want. So you've got a nice teal. I want to see more breathing effects in teal. Let's go like that. There we go. Now I have a nice breathing effect in teal. Access to copy and paste. And let's say I'm good with this. Now I want to change my layer 1 and layer 2. I'm still thinking it's too bright, so I'm going to go give myself access to brightness, and then I like this color. I'm going to leave it for now. So you can do whatever you want now. Now you can add some macros. Macros in VIAL are also pretty nice. So you want to add text to a macro. Let's say you want to QMK like I don't want to type out all this QMK every time. I want to right. Okay, so let's say I want to have macro 1 is going to be a list of text for my QMK, and macro 2 is going to be you can do whatever you want. You can have a series of tab, and then next action I'm going to tap paste, and then my next action is going to be tap enter. All right, so this is not a very useful macro for anything in general. It's just, I'm going to tab twice, paste, and then hit enter. So we're going to put macro 1 and 2 here for C and V. Macro 1, if you remember, is my QMK compile line. Macro 2 is my tab paste. So nothing fancy. The first tap is still, the first layer is still my Windows paste. And if I hold it now, tab, enter. Not really useful in this context. Maybe if you're doing something really repetitive, you might use tab macros, but anyway, that's just an example. And that's it. That's VIAL. VIAL is the easiest configuration tool. I like it much better than VIA. I like it better than QMK for simplicity and ease of changing things on the fly. There's stuff you can do in QMK that's still pretty great. This doesn't replace it, but I do think it improves on it. The last part, so that's it. Yeah, if you wanted to get to how to burn VIAL onto the key macro pad, you're done. The last thing I'm just going to talk about briefly because I like it is combos. So let's say I want to output something else or add another function. So let's look at my C and V layer 0 is Control C and left GUI V. So if I hit both of these keys, Control C and GUI V, Windows V, I want to output we'll get to that in a second. Sorry, I got excited. I want to output a RGB mode toggle. Turn off my light. So combos are cool, are really cool because you can, I've only got 3 keys, but I can add functionality to all of them, right? So it's just pretty cool. You want to add another combo? Let's say I want tap dance 0 and Control C. So these two, I want them to do, what do we want to do? Something fun. Let's go. I can't think of anything fun at all. I'm sorry. This is super boring. Let's just turn it into a calculator. I don't know. At least explore. That's something else, right? So now these 2 buttons give me explore. So I can pop up to go to my downloads, access my new stuff. Anyway, so that's the great thing about combos. So you can do combos on all of them. You can do combos on layer 1 as well if you want. So right now my layer 1 is macro 1 and macro 2. Macro 1 and macro 2 are just random things we've got in there. But if I change my combo to macro 1, macro 2, let's output macro 3, which we haven't specified yet. So macro 3 is going to output text. I love macros, which is true. So now to access layer 1, hold, hit both of those. My new macro, I love macros. Yep. Anyway, combos are great. One of the reasons I love VIAL is that it's so easy to access your combos. They're available in QMK too, and you'll have people say things like QMK is better because it's closer to actual firmware, and that's great, but this is easier. That's it. That's pretty much a short rundown of the functionality of VIAL with the key macro pad. I like it, I've enjoyed it, and I hope that you enjoy it too. Next, we're going to talk about QMK a little bit. So the last piece of software you're going to need is QMK MSYS, which is how you will create new firmware in QMK. So let's say I want to go back to the default. So go ahead and download the latest version of QMK MSYS. When you get to QMK MSYS, you're going to, a good place to start is docs.qmk.fm. We'll have links for all these things, but the first thing you want to do once you've installed it is run QMK Setup. This will download all the firmware in the QMK repository and give you access to all the keyboards they have saved. That'll take a minute. Don't if you want to do that and save with the video, go ahead and pause it now and then run the QMK Setup. So once you run QMK Setup, I'm going to fast forward this, but it'll pull all the firmware down to your PC. And we're going to come back in a few minutes when this is done. Or that was pretty fast for me because I've already done this before. So if you are following the guide, you're pretty much gonna compile your new firmware. You can do QMK Setup H to specify the path where all your firmware is, but by default, it's gonna go into your users, your name or whatever your user is logged in as, and your QMK firmware. So by default, it's going to all drop here. Here's your keyboards. This is important to know because this is the path for compiling, right? So by default, here's mass drops, the key. I know they've rebranded to drop.com, but when they were originally setting up, they were mass drop, so that's what they are. Here's the key maps that comes with it. You've got default Mac OS, which may be important if you're trying to get this to work on a Macintosh device. Then you've got URL-Copy-Paste and URL-Copy-Paste Mac OS. So this is what we're going to compile, but let's take a quick look at what that means. All right, so you're going to open this with any text editor. Maybe. Here we go. So this is how you configure things in QMK. You edit your layout and change the KC, the QMK call out for what the name of the key you want to press. So by the default key map is left control for your stack button, C for your C, and V for your third position here. This is it, default. This is what it comes as. This is really basic. But if you wanted to revert back to your original setup, you need to know which key map you want and which keyboard you've got. Then you will go into QMK MSYS. And if you remember, I made this a macro. This is what you're going to want to type. You're going to want to type QMK compile -keyboard. This keyboard is mass drop the key, and the key map is default. So run this command line in QMK MSYS. Okay, so we're done. Don't worry if it takes a while. Don't give up. As long as you don't get any errors here, then your firmware is fine. So I want to use this firmware. When it generates new firmware, it drops it into the QMK firmware. There we go. Sorry. QMK firmware .build. Here's my default hex. So QMK Toolbox, I want to open. The default.hex. So now I'm ready to load or flash this firmware to my key. So I'm gonna hit my reset. You use anything to hit the reset. I use this little ejector. Device connected. I'm gonna flash. And some people will say auto flash. It doesn't matter. You can click flash. It's all the same. You'll notice that my lights stayed blue. I've had this happen a few times. I don't know. There's no configuration in the default to change RGB. So there's no way to say it's gonna be one thing or another. It's no longer available in VIAL because it's not VIAL compatible now. And it's pretty much just C and V. And then you wanna highlight something, copy it, and then paste it. And that's all you can do by default. Not my favorite, but that's what it is. Let's take a quick look at the Mac OS version just to see what it looks like. We're not going to load this because I don't have it, but instead of being control, it's left GUI. Another interesting thing to look at is the copy paste one. They have it so that they've defined the stack button to send string for stackoverflow.com. And then this is going to be Control C, which is here. Key 1 is Control C, and key 2 is Control V. So it actually is copy paste for the URL copy-paste firmware. You can do more stuff in QMK. You can change these if you know what you want them to be. Let's say you don't really care about outputting the stack overflow. You can change it to any key. It's easiest to find your keys by using the online, the online tools, but all right, so let's just pretend like we want to use the URL copy-paste firmware. So let's say first thing I need to do is compile it. So we're gonna QMK compile, then key map, keyboard mask drop / the key map is gonna be URL copy paste. Okay, so this will turn our key map in this folder into a .hex file, so we can send it using the QMK toolbox. All right, so again, don't worry if it takes a while, okay? So I've just made a new URL copy-paste hex right here. So if I want to send that to my macro pad, I'm going to use QMK Toolbox. Here's my new firmware. I've got it loaded and ready to flash. All I have to do now is hit the reset pin. I'm connected, ready to go. Let's flash it. Done. It's that easy. So what we've got now is it sends a text line, stackoverflow.com, and now instead of being just a C where you have to hold Control C, it is now a paste and copy and paste. All right, so it's not the best. This will not be an in-depth how to configure things in QMK. You can, if you want, do that. You could make yourself a layer 0, a layer 1, and do everything manually, but I strongly recommend using the VIAL version. It's just much easier. So let's say I want to go back to VIAL. Here we go. Here's my VIAL. Hex. Now, some keyboards will have a key press you can do to reset it, and you could configure this to have one also, but yeah, they've got the reset button easily accessible in the bottom. Hey, I'm red, I'm back to VIAL compatible. Here's my keypad. I've gone back to default, but that's okay. I'm going to make it the way I like it. Copy and Windows paste. Tap dance, we're gonna set up for tab, shift, tab, layer 1, layer 2, layer 1, we're gonna switch the mode around again. Layer 2, we're gonna change the color again. Combos, I'm gonna have these two buttons. Toggle my backlight on and off. Oops. See, I messed up. I did shift copies. Let's try Control C. There we go. So I've got my backlight on and off. I've got my cycle through the modes. There you go, good old RGB. No, that's just like green, red flash. Oof. Too much for me. Oh. Okay, that's pretty much it. I appreciate you guys watching this with me. If you like this video, please leave us a subscribe. We're doing new content weekly, we hope. If you have any questions, ask them down below. If you want to see a specific thing for VIAL, VIA, or QMK in the future, please let me know. If you want to see a particular keyboard setup, also let me know. Thanks for watching, and good luck out there.